All right, Karin, we were actually on the podcast. I feel like it was 4 years ago now, but you're a multi guest now on the podcast. This is exciting. We're in Cannes, France, obviously at Sport Beach, but I was excited to talk to you just to talk shop about what you do every day for athletes, for players, both, active, retired, all those different things. So can you just give the listeners a little bit of a background of where you've been and what you're doing?
Yeah. So we're on year 3 of Content Capital. We go by CCG Social, but
probably feels like 30 years. But.
It feels like 30 years. But we are a creative social agency specifically working on athlete social channels or essentially public figure social channels. So instead of managing a brand, we are helping craft and build the brand of a public figure or an athlete through their social channels.
Okay, so walk me through that, because we were just talking before this, we sat down about how intimate we all get it, right? Like our social media, when we want to post a picture, you're looking at filters, you're like, oh my God, my eyes look weird. People are very, very particular about their social media, and athletes are no different. And I think you can understand that. So how do you approach as you bring on new clients? If you have any examples of just how you help them, because it is such an intimate thing, their personal brand.
Yeah, it's I didn't quite understand the magnitude of how different it would be, because I've spent 15 years working on sports media, social, with
Red Bull,
LeBron, Red Bull. So it was very athlete centric social. But when you switch it to posting for an individual, I always say a PR agent is writing a press release, sending it out, but they're not writing as if the voice of an athlete.
Ghost writing, yeah.
So it's probably nerve-wracking to do a press release, but it's different when you're actually posting as if the person is posting. So it's a very intimate experience. To be honest, it's kind of crazy the relationship you build with the athlete, because you have to start to understand how they think, how they write, how they talk, who their relationships are with, who we want to tag.
You're almost selling trust over content.
100%,
right?
I would say.
And that they want to be around you and hang out with you. And because if that doesn't work, then it doesn't matter how creative the content is.
Yeah. And even to get the content is a trust exercise. We have to come and be like, hey, this is a cool trend. We have to get this video of you.
I won't make you look bad. Yeah.
And we usually are just trust it. So the process we go through is we do get to know them. They do a questionnaire of even what skin color, what skin tone do you use in emojis?
Yeah.
What's your nicknames? What are relationships you want to amplify? What are things you don't? So we kind of go through all that. You get to know them. And then everything is approved via text, but so they get to see it and approve it. But it's a little bit of a, you slowly get in a process okay, they like these things, they don't like these things.
Course.
They're going to say no to some stuff. Here's the one thing that's going to get them to say yes.
Yep.
And you build over time, and once you get going, it becomes you're in their mind, what they want to post. And then you also know on the other side, what fans want and what performs well. So it's kind of merging those two worlds.
Yeah, you and I have shared this over multiple lunches and dinners and all that stuff, but it's I started my career working on Kobe Bryant's social. Now, 12 years ago, back then, they were I'll have my cousin do it, or I want this for free because working with me can get you the logo on the website. I've always shared with you, it's so awesome you've built a company around this, because things have changed, but you're really seeing athletes and people that don't have a social media presence at all, I want to double down on this. I see the value. And it just shows how digital and social is becoming the forefront of media now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's the only medium that you can speak directly to fans, and you can directly shape your own brand. So you're not having to try to get someone to tell this story about this, or try to push, this new brand you're talking about. You can create the storytelling, you can tell the story out of your own words versus trying to have somebody else synthesize it.
Yeah.
And some of the athlete channels are bigger than media agents, media companies.
100%.
So you're who, I always say LeBron has 200 million followers and ESPN has 90 million followers. Who is media? Who is really in charge here? So it's a really fun space. It's great. And I think athletes, it's just you can't expect them to be the best in the world at their sport and then also be after a game, curating a carousel.
Right. They're not.
Like,
yeah.
so we take all that off their plate.
Yep.
And they do really see the results really quickly. Like really within like a couple months, like people are coming up to them being like, oh, I love your post, or like, you're so good on TikTok.
Yep.
And we have athletes where like half the people that talk to me come up to me from TikTok, half come from football.
Wow.
So like they become equal.
I brag about you a lot, especially with Richard Jefferson and what he did on TikTok, amassing well over 1 million followers with your strategy. And he's so great too, to your point about an amazing athlete, but also like a creator and down to like connect with his audience and go in trends that even I'm sure some of those didn't make sense to him. Like, I'll do it. Let's have some fun here. Because oftentimes I think a lot of people just say that this is not going to work for this athlete or this athlete. But with Richard, for example, it's like you were talking earlier too, like a lot of people don't even know that he was an incredible guy on the Nets that went to the NBA finals or played at Arizona. They know him as the TikTok dude that's super relatable.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, there's a whole undercurrent in the comments where people are like, I saw the TikTok guy on ESPN.
Yeah.
Like they literally like, oh my God, he went from TikTok to ESPN. When did that happen? And then people are like, no, dude, he was in the NBA for 17 years. He's an NBA
and then you
champion.
guys played into it. There's stitches where he's like, so this was me like playing and like you guys actually
I'm dunking
but you
in
leaned
the
into
finals.
it. I literally played in the NBA. We were joking too. Like a lot of Gen Z knows Michael Jordan as the crying meme guy, not the 90s Chicago Bulls star. So introducing yourself to a brand new audience, especially if you want to be relatable to young audiences, is I'm sure one of the number one bullet points when you onboard.
Yeah, especially for the like retired athletes, which there are a good amount of. And that's kind of like when you're in the spotlight and you're like hot and going in your career, like sometimes you don't feel like you need social.
Yeah.
And as you get into the last like 2-3 years, you start being like, wait, what am I doing next? How am I? And you're like, this is a big tool.
How do I leverage my platform? How do I double down, parlay my success on different mediums, right?
So I think it's actually a big element of like the clients we get is like people who are kind of like planning their next phase, or like a Richard, like I'm in my next phase. I should have capitalized on this when I was playing, but I didn't. So but it's fun because then they do get a whole new like kind of like lease on their brand, and they get
second career.
Yeah. So like Andre Agassi's one that like, you know, so iconic. And now Gen Z are doing all these TikToks about his fashion and how he actually like inspired Virgil Abloh and like he's the most iconic athlete in fashion.
So interesting.
And he doesn't have any idea that's happening, but I'm like,
yo, there's talk going on about
like,
you. Yeah.
The kids are like copying your style now, but they don't even really know. I think they knew he played tennis, but like not really.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to refresh that and play with that, and like kind of, it's exciting because he's kind of like, I didn't know that. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's fun.
I wanted to ask you about brands, because you and I talked about this. I talk about it with all of our different colleagues. Like, so many sponsors and brands hijack the culture rather than create with it. And I know you've had this experience with different partners or brands that your athletes work with, where they just want a call to action. They want to create an infomercial. And you have to come in and say, no, like there's this really cool trend, and like let's lean on his personality and create a piece of content that would work whether the sponsor's involved or not. But I know you've been in, I'm sure, hundreds and hundreds of those conversations. So how do you manage that? What is like your advice when you're in those brand combos?
Yeah, one of the big things we do is we try to build out a series or like a pillar that lends itself,
like social franchise.
Yeah, like a franchise that would lend itself to brand partners in a natural way. My favorite one ever is Eric Armstead, D lineman, who's on the 49ers, and now he's on the Jags. But he's 6'8", 300 pounds. And when he started talking about food, he just like lit up.
Yeah.
So we have a series called What a 300-Pound D lineman eats at Chipotle, eats at Shake Shack,
smart.
whatever.
Haven't even seen it. I want to watch it.
And I mean, we posted the first one is like 6 million views.
Wow.
Because it's innately interesting.
Yeah.
And he loves talking about it. And now, but then you've got yourself a package that's like, do you want us to do it at Panda Express? Do you want us to do it at Shake Shack? Like, who wants to be involved? I do think that's where brands are missing.
Yes.
Not enough of them are seeing those opportunities. And when we even try to pitch it, it's not in their campaign. Like, they are just so structured.
Do you think it, like, it's kind of sad to say this. Do you think like the old heads have to retire out for us to get past this? Because I feel like I've been screaming and you've been screaming for 12 years on this, but it's still like, no, why don't we just like put the logo in it 19 different times? I don't know.
I think it has to do with kind of like the campaign structure. Like, people at every brand is saying, okay, we have this campaign with this much money. This is our messaging.
It's a media buy more so than.
Yeah, we slot in who's the people. And then they were like, here's the script to say, come to Shake Shack on Sunday.
Yes.
And then it gets a little wonky because then the athlete is the end of the chain being like, okay.
Yeah.
And so but if you were to just say what's an always on, like entertaining thing to bring the brand like top of mind to people, then I think that works better. But it's been hard to sell in the series. They just really are like, no, read the script. This is our campaign, do the thing. And so I think that's where there's like, could be more opportunity to just save a little budget to be like, here's some like wiggle room, always on stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, to be honest, sometimes brand campaigns are so strict and rigid that we are like, let's do it. Let's not add any creativity.
Wow.
Like, let's do exactly what they want.
Let's just
because it's like that's what they want. And if we try to add creativity, then we have to reshoot it.
400 red tape meetings.
So you kind of have to go in from the beginning with somebody who's like, let's do something cool. And if they're not, you almost
just check the box. Okay, we'd rather not check the box, but it's gonna like, this it's gonna tank. Yeah, it's not gonna get engagement. Yeah.
But also like there's a whole creative team behind this, and you guys thought of this, and you thought of the caption and all these things. So the value there is, I'm an athlete. I'm going to deliver the brief.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like Alex Earle was talking yesterday where she's like, went back to Microsoft and was like, I think we could do this better. And they allowed her to, and it did really well.
And the ROI just is exponential when you're open to that. But to your point, like, nope, this is the media buy. We want it like this. Like, okay, we'll check the box. But you can get 100x more reach if you do this right. Speaking of reach, I've just been like telling clients and screaming from the rooftops as well, my little different rants, but this idea of shareability and discoverability over followers. And I think this means a lot for athletes where they amass this huge following, but now TikTok and Instagram is like, no, we want to like figure out if this works. Then we'll push it to the For You page. Then we'll push it to the Explore tab rather than guaranteeing 3% of your audience is going to see it. So how has that shifted your guys' just algorithm strategy? As I'm sure that's always fun to, like us, move and groove with
I think it's fun because athlete content, like people are rabid to see the athletes in a normal way. They like want to know everything about them. If they're going to post, people go crazy.
I always say pulling the curtain is so fascinating, right?
So fascinating. So everything we do is like really exciting. So it usually does really well with reach and views.
Okay.
And the only hard part is on the athlete side, they need to see the follower count go up.
I know, the vanity metrics. So you have to educate them on.
So we have to just be like, this will come, like the following will come, but like, look at your engagement rate. Like, look at how many people are commenting. And like, also like, I think it's not, the post isn't doing well. And I'm like, it's been 5 hours. So you got to really wait like 2-3 days. And then you look back and you're like, this is 500,000 views or this has like, you know, I think most people, it's like this million view. If it gets 1 million views or more,
that's another vanity
this is a gold star, but it's like to consistently get 200,000, 300,000 views on videos, like that's a lot of people you're reaching every day.
Yeah.
So I think it's almost just, for us, it's good because the stuff that they post gets on the discovery page. It's just, how does it bring in new followers?
Constant education, I think, of like, no, we promise this is really good news. Like we reached a whole new audience and this is going to be good for us. So many brands, like there's so many like CMOs and stuff that listen to my podcast, and it's like, I would love to just get your take on how they should be looking at using athletes authentically. And if you have a seat at the table, like what are you saying in terms of how you explain what works and what doesn't?
I think creators and individuals are really important for all brands to use. But a creator has reach. Athletes have reach and credibility. So you're buying also not only their social, like don't just look at like this influencer has 1 million, this athlete has 1 million. The athlete also has innate credibility of being the best athlete in the world. And like their fan base lives and dies for their performance and who they are. So it is a different value proposition, and it's a lot more than just looking at the numbers but at the same time, some athletes have great social and great engagement. So I think people need to understand that more and take it into account versus picking based on followers.
Yep, I love that. And then final question as we wrap up here. Where do you see everything going? I mean, I'm excited that sport just continues to just drive not only culture, but like so many Fortune 500 brands are like going all in. Streamers, I mean, when Netflix, I had to joke with TJ earlier on the show, but it's like, as my alarm goes off, last question, promise. But as Netflix, we're never gonna get into live sports. And then they do the Christmas Day game and then Beyonce's the halftime show. I'm like, okay, like this is happening. Netflix is not playing around. This is like their moment, like mic drop. So I'm sure you're just as excited as me, but where do you see everything going with athletes, sports, marketing? Just curious on your thoughts.
I think sports is becoming a huge and like growing pillar within the entertainment ecosystem at large.
Yeah.
And it is the only thing that people watch live.
Yeah.
Like when you now have everything is on demand, sports becomes this crown jewel.
You can binge watch everything except
sports.
Yeah.
And you never will be able to binge watch sports.
Yeah.
So I think it has a very uniqueness to that. And for advertising, it's the only thing that you're going to be able to buy a commercial spot and people are going to watch through it. So I think that Netflix, I'm sure, will find creative ways to do it, but all the streaming partners are going to start to get in on this. And it's good for the sport. Like the media rights deal is diversified.
Tech money.
And tech money. Like let's give Amazon Thursday Night Football, like great.
Yeah.
And then it gives everything, like everyone has more negotiating power.
And then it goes global too, which is a whole nother thing. So
I love it. I'm not a person who's like buying Red Zone and like, I've never done that as a female, and I just didn't like.
Come on, Scott Hansen.
No, but like
7 hours of commercial-free football.
I love being like, I can go on YouTube TV and like the game is here, or
easy.
like I like Amazon. I like the like. Oh, this is where I watch my shows, and now I can watch the game.
And watch the shop, watch the secondary. That's the thing too, the Manning cast, right? So
and it's fun. Also, or like the Simpsons one.
Yeah.
Like I think it's fun and innovative.
Super Bowl, all that stuff. So
so I think it's good.
Always appreciate you and just talking shop, and thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cool.